I'll say it, Jay-Z really does have you guys so confused, as manipulators do. But I will tell you from doing this deep dive, and we are going to get into the dark psychology of Jay-Z, it did not take me long. I barely scratched the surface to discover violence, to discover how dark this goes, and to really have that narrative fall apart. But yet when I was looking at comments, I saw the thousands, if not millions of people who really bought into this family man storyline, who bought into that Beyonce is this feminist icon. And I will be breaking down Beyonce in a part 2, because that narrative and how wrong we have gotten it is even worse. But at the center of Beyonce's story is a man who controlled her. And I am talking about Jay-Z. Before we get too into it, welcome back to my channel. My name is Julie Tice, where we break down the psychology of celebrities, of the headlines. We find out what is really there so we can learn more about ourselves and others. And Jay-Z is an interesting topic because there are many Jay-Z's that you will have in your life. And I will tell you, when I was watching his interviews and I was gathering the research on it, when I first just looked at the narrative he put out there, I kind of get it. I saw him as someone who's calm, someone who takes a mentorship role, someone who is very wise, someone who came from nothing and turned his pain into alchemy, into this huge hip hop empire. Some could say that's quite admirable. But of course, that is just the narrative that Jay-Z has put out there. And in all of my research, I'll tell you, this is the first time that I felt a little uneasy about putting one of these videos out there. I will tell you, I was even warned against doing this video because of the fandom of Beyonce, but also the power dynamics. And we're going to get into that because Jay-Z is someone where his power continues to be unchecked. So for the purposes of that, I will say everything in this video is alleged, and I am also a compulsive liar. So you don't have to believe anything that I say. And if I ever go missing, just go through all my videos and see who I broke down. My money is going to be on Kris Jenner or Jay-Z. That was a joke for legal purposes. So let's get into Jay-Z because he does have a pretty traumatic and also interesting backstory. Jay-Z was born as Sean Carter, December 4th, 1969, and he grew up in the projects. And I don't say he grew up in the projects lightly because we have to keep in mind, what do the projects consist of? They consist of violence, poverty, drugs, and that's what was shaping little baby Sean Carter. And when you take an environment that is so out of control, it's very often that people will develop a compulsion.
One sec.
Off.
One sec.
Turn off. Cancel. Cancel.
Give me a moment.
Oh my God.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Shut up. Sorry. I seem to be having trouble with the connection.
I just had to get up. That has never happened to me before. My laptop just started talking to me. They're listening. Anyways, I say that it's important for us to understand what does growing up in the projects actually mean, because what we have here is a place that is filled with chaos. And this is an origin point for many narcissists, because when people grow up in chaos, what they usually find then is that control gives them some peace. And not only did Jay-Z experience trauma and chaos in the projects that he was constantly surrounded by, but he experienced it at home with his mom and dad. He has a really interesting story and relationship with his dad. Honestly, going through and seeing all of his songs, he talks like a narcissist because there is this black and white thinking. So with my clients that I have, I can usually get to the inception root for where a lot of their maladaptive thinking happened. And these become our core beliefs. I always say that a change in perspective is a miracle. Why? Because your perspective is why your life is running the way that it is. Your perspective is what develops your beliefs. Your beliefs is then what dictate what decisions you make. Your decisions are what run your life. And a lot of the times we are left with maladaptive core beliefs. It's beliefs that we don't even want to believe anymore, but we are carrying it with us. So many people don't even realize. We think that we're conscious adults who aren't biased by decisions. And I see it time and time again when I sit with my clients, when I talk with my friends, that it is these core beliefs that people don't even want anymore that is running their life. And by the way, if you're ever listening on my videos and you're like, that is me, or I want help with this, I do take on one-on-one clients, and you can book a session with me down below. But Jay-Z's core beliefs, when he writes about his father in his songs, it is this very black and white. It's almost like he has a shame, which I've seen in people before. They can't really cope with the idea that they can both love and hate someone, especially when it is their parent. You are biologically wired to love your parent, but this parent also gave you pain and gave you trauma. So the mind doesn't know how to cope with that. And in Jay-Z's music, he writes like that. It is both like, I love you, Dad, but don't worry, I'm not mad at you. But then other lyrics will reveal that there is anger. So here's a few examples. December 4th, a child is born. Before I knew it, had my pop's trousers on. That's how we do it when the man of the house is gone. You either stand or fall. I choose to stand. There's also retrospect ain't the same since I lost my dad. He's still alive, but still fuck you, don't cross my path. Wanted to drink Miller's Nips and smoke Newports just like you. I would say my daddy loves me and he'll never go away. Bullshit, do you even remember December is my birthday? Mom raised me, Pop, I miss you. God help me forgive him. I got some issues. Pop died, didn't cry, didn't know him that well. Standing at the church pretending to be hurt wouldn't work, so his smirk was all on my face like, damn, that man's face is just like my face. So Pop, I forgive you for all the shit that I lived through. I'm just glad we got to see each other, talk, and re-meet each other, save a place in heaven till next time we meet. And you know, that's art. We process our feelings, but I bring this up because it's... And you know, that's art. That's how artists process their feelings. But I bring these up because it's like he almost can't admit or allow that part of himself that is angry to hate his dad. He both has his dad on this pedestal. And he actually said in an interview, once you put your father on such a high pedestal and he lets you down, you never want to experience that pain again. And then he goes on to say that he became really quiet and really cold after his dad left. And he suddenly felt like he had to become the man of the house at age 11. And the way Jay-Z's dad left is also really bizarre. So Jay-Z's dad, his name was Adnis, and his brother was killed in the projects. And he was always going on these witch hunts to find out who killed his brother. And Adnis was out of the house, so Jay-Z's mom was essentially raising him. But Adnis was also a drug addict. He was drinking, he was using heroin. Essentially what we can see here is he isn't able to be a dad. And Jay-Z even tells a story about his mom flipping out on his dad, which is really interesting because in this interview, Jay-Z takes his dad's side. So Jay-Z's mom says, you have to stay home, you are literally a father, you have children. And Adnis is like, that's my brother. And Jay-Z really, he's on that same mindset as him. He's all like, how could she say that? You know, that's his brother. And so this man, Adnis, becomes so consumed by this witch hunt from his brother, which is probably a way of him to deal with his grief, not be present as a father. And he really just ends up going off the deep end. And then when Jay-Z is finally 11, he leaves and he doesn't come back. So what we're seeing is Jay-Z does have trauma. And I always start here because it's important on this channel that we humanize these people, but also when we're sitting down and we have our abuser in front of us and we say, oh, but you know, his father left him and he was surrounded by violence. Someone is always going to have a story. I'm sure you have a story, but it's never an excuse to end up obsessed with power and control, although we can understand why. And you'll see how this also leads to some of Jay-Z's violence, allegedly. But what is not alleged is actually a story that Jay-Z confirmed himself of when he shot his brother. Jay-Z shot his brother. I feel like this just isn't known. He shot his brother when Jay-Z was 12. So at a very young age, he is showing signs of being raised around violence, but then also showing signs himself of being able to commit violence. That's not normal for a 12-year-old to shoot someone. And we have to be better about recognizing people's patterns. I know because I'm one of them, and I know the people that come to my channel, you guys love psychology and you love understanding humans, but sometimes that gives us almost too much empathy. It's never bad to understand someone, but when we use that empathy as like, oh, you know, like they're just hurt, These are patterns, and people rarely do something once. People are showing you who they are. Of course, I believe that everyone has the capability to change, but most people don't want to change. And when people ask, especially about narcissists, especially about abusers, they go, can a narcissist ever change? My answer to that is, sure, but why would they want to? These coping mechanisms that they have developed work perfectly for them. And a lot of times these coping mechanisms are what is hiding them and shielding them from the pain of their childhood, of their trauma. You will start to see this as we go through and we continue to dissect and break Jay-Z down. But it's not just about Jay-Z, it's about the Jay-Z in your life. So why would they change? You will see that everything that he created and crafted, it is clever. This is how we end up as adults, and we say, damn, why do I act the way that I do? How do I stop doing these things? Well, part of it is amazing. We developed all of this from being kids and having to learn to survive. And Jay-Z's origin story is critical to understanding his dark psychology. He was the abandoned boy from the Mercy projects, determined never to feel less than anyone ever again. And what let him do that? It was power and it was control. He built emotional armor around his childhood pain. That armor was forged in violence and hustling and control. And by the way, this is who y'all let have access to your precious Beyonce, the feminist icon that you hold up on your own pedestal, which we will get into later, but is manufactured by Jay-Z. So in adulthood, surprise, surprise, these patterns don't stop, because that's what a pattern does. I tell you guys, when we're looking at things like abuse, how do we know something's abuse? How do we know something is just anger? You zoom out and you see, is it part of a larger pattern of control? And these behaviors go on into Jay-Z's adult life. He is described as being manipulative. He is described as doing whatever it takes. Former friends and business partners describe him as ruthlessly focused on his own success. And a prime example of this is when he's building his hip hop empire. They're at Rockefeller Records and he has a big falling out with Dame Dash. If you look up stuff about Jay-Z, this whole feud comes up. To summarize it though, Dash was really close with Jay-Z, and he just says he's like an evil man, that he sabotaged him. He never will let anyone rise up against him. For instance, Dash alleges in 2005, Jay-Z torpedoed a lucrative clothing line deal with Tommy Hilfiger simply because Dash stood to gain $40 million. Dash even compared him to a Batman villain. Specifically, he said, if you could compare him to a character now, I'd say he's like Penguin. He's ruthless like that. And this was because Jay-Z was known to pit people against each other. And personalities like this, they're not just like this in business. This is how they view people. They view people as that it is okay to exploit them. Honestly, even more than a narcissist, I would say that Jay-Z has some antisocial personality traits. He reminds me more of a sociopath, the way that he aligns with people for full power. He had a collaboration also with R. Kelly. So this was even after R. Kelly had rumors of being with underage women, including Aliyah, who was also Dash's ex-girlfriend. And Jay-Z also spent a lot of time with Aliyah when she was like 15 years old. And this is what Dame Dash in an interview had to say about Jay-Z. Everyone knew R. Kelly married Aliyah when she was 15. I asked him straight up, how are you going to do a project with a guy who raped my girl? That alone was enough for me. It was a final straw. Yet Jay-Z went through with this collaboration. He didn't care about ethics. He literally just did not care, because for him, it is about money. Is it about exploitation? It's about who can I use to get to where I want to go? And there is a quote, it's like, there's no ethical billionaires. There is a reason for that. If you look at his success, you think he just got there the right way. But why don't you just go get there the right way? He had everything against him. Sure, there are things that we can admire, but allegedly there is some very dark, twisted shit that he did to get himself there as well. And Jay-Z uses the manipulation tactics that many sociopaths or narcissists use. One of those being creating dependency. He will position himself as the gatekeeper of opportunities. We also saw this with Diddy. Diddy was another one who has done this. And this keeps people hooked. You make them feel like, hey, you need me to get to where you want to go. But also now, if you mess up anything, I will take that opportunity that you want so bad, I will take it away. And what does this mean? It means his friendliness is strategic. His generosity is conditional, and his loyalty is only skin deep. And this is a page right out of a narcissist playbook. Yet because Jay-Z has continued to win, he continues to evade any responsibility. He has shot his brother, never went to jail for that. His brother also survived. Oh, and I forgot to say why, because his brother stole his chain. He went to that level of violence, shooting your brother because he stole a piece of jewelry from him. He's been in other shootings. He's been shot at. Miraculously, he survived. He keeps surviving. This man like really has 100 different lives. When they say like made a soul in contract with the devil, I honestly, it makes a little sense. Jay-Z plays people like a chess game, and you guys bought it. You continue to be manipulated, and he actually crafted no better manipulation plan than with marrying Beyonce. Publicly, Jay-Z's image got a major makeover when he married Beyonce. He went from this thug, this hustler, to a family man. Now he's literally going to red carpets at Disney because his daughter gets to be the lion in The Lion King. And it is insane, but it shouldn't be. He is at the top of his game for a reason. He is a master manipulator, allegedly, for a reason. He's good at his craft, and you guys consistently fall for it. But it's also because no one checks him. But he has created this perfect archetype image of this power couple. I can't even believe how many times I see, as far as when people are praising couples and they say Jay-Z and Beyonce, you guys are crazy. You have no actual blueprint for what a healthy relationship looks like, because like I said, it did not take me long to find all of this out. So let's look at it. On the surface, their relationship is sold as this powerful union of king and queen and of them being equals. That is what a power couple would be made up of. But Jay-Z curated this design. And I want you to ask yourself, as we go through all this, who did this relationship actually benefit? Was it Beyonce or was it Jay-Z? Because as much as they are trying to sell us the Kool-Aid of this equal power couple relationship, I want you to look a little bit about how unequal the power dynamics are here. So Beyonce was around 18 years old when she first met Jay-Z, who was 30. Now Beyonce also has a crazy story of herself, which I think leads her right into the hands of Jay-Z, because before she was controlled by Jay-Z, she was controlled by her father. But we are going to get into that in part 2. So if you aren't already, make sure you like and subscribe. It helps this channel more than you know, and I'm so thankful for every single one of you guys that tune in and comment. So Beyonce was this young, upcoming, rising star. She's part of Destiny Child, and she meets Jay-Z, who is already an established businessman. Like I said, 30 years old. They start dating when she is 19 and he is 31. So, and not only do they have this 12-year age gap, they have a huge power difference. Jay-Z has more money, more life experience, and be careful of this. I remember being younger and having older guys hit on me, and you are so dumb and you think you're like, wow, I must be really mature for these guys to like me. And then I'm like, oh, there is something actually so wrong with you that you don't want to date someone your age. I am 30 right now. You could not pay me to hang out, let alone date. I want to puke in my mouth. You cannot pay me to date an 18-year-old man. What? I can't even imagine how different your mind is at that point. I know there are people with age gap relationships. I'm already going to get it. It's not always like that. Like zoom out and look at it for what it is for most people. Because a lot of these times, these men bank on you not having life experience. They bank on that because when you start to say, this doesn't feel right, I'm really sad about this, this is hurting me, they say, oh, you actually don't know what a relationship looks like. And especially Jay-Z, even when he talks in these interviews, he has this like mentoring aura about him. And there is a certain type of narcissist, and they love to have that. They're like, let me nurture someone. And it looks very benevolent. It's not. It is controlling. And it is also, if you break it down, it is still this, I know better than you. Let me help you in your sad life because I can take you to where you want to go. And I'm going to make you become dependent on that as planned. So I want you to ask yourself, put it in the comments, Was Beyonce a true equal partner, or was she being molded into someone Jay-Z could control? And this wasn't the first time Jay-Z dated someone younger. There are other indicators that show that Jay-Z liked his women to be young or pure or idealized or someone that he could shape into. Also, another word for that is called grooming. There have been long-standing rumors, like I said, rumors, alleged, that Jay-Z liked dating younger women. For instance, he was allegedly close to Aaliyah before Dame Dash dated her. He gave an early career start to rapper Foxy Brown when she was just a teenager. And of course, he denies any inappropriate relationships, but it just kind of goes into this story that we're seeing, this data that we are having, that Jay-Z he just likes to mentor people. Probably reading into it too much. But I want you to know that's what groomers say. That's what groomers say. That's how they get away with it. And that's what they also say to the people that they are grooming. And I want you to know that grooming also starts out slow, which is interesting because Jay-Z and Beyonce talk about this almost like it's a good thing. So how they say the relationship even started is that Jay-Z took things slowly at first. She said later they were friends on phone for over a year before any dates. This isn't as innocent as it looks, at least not to me. What this shows me is a calculated approach. This is what groomers do. They will invest time in you to win you over. So then when you finally realize you're trapped or it's too far and deep or you actually love them, you're attached to them, it's because they were tending to you. They were grooming you. That's where the word comes from. So by the time they went public as a couple in the early 2000s, Jay-Z has already positioned himself as this wise mentor, going slow kind of guy. So I want you to ask yourself, who benefited in this? Well, let me tell you in the ways that Jay-Z benefited, because it was enormously. Beyonce was and is one of the most loved and renowned pop stars in the world. She has a sterling reputation and a massive fan base that stretches well beyond hip hop. And by attaching himself to her, Jay-Z gained mainstream credibility and a family man image. And it softened the rough edges of his past. He went from a rapper criminal to music's first family man, appearing at award shows and matching couture, and eventually fathering children with her. This myth of the perfect union bolstered Jay-Z's brand. He wasn't just a businessman anymore, but a domesticated husband to a feminist icon. And that's the crazy thing about parasocial relationships, is it's really hard for people to hate, dislike, criticize a man who is supposed to be the devoted husband to their queen. Okay, so why am I hating on them being a power couple? Well, because behind the glossy images lies some pretty dark rumors. Multiple reports and whispers have alleged that Jay-Z has exerted control over Beyonce's life, and that he has for years. I did find a source that said Jay-Z was more than just a husband. He is a gatekeeper. He limits Beyonce's interactions and essentially managing her world, which this stands in stark contrast to Beyonce's public persona of a feminist icon. And I get it. You might say, okay, well, whatever. Those are just sources. Hey, you're right. That's why we spent so long laying the groundwork for Jay-Z's childhood. And where did this come from? Do you really think it's out of the realm of possibility of someone with a history of violence? And I want you to think about the abusers that you've had in your life. Think about their history of violence, their trauma. And although it might be dark and bleak and filled with pain, did they just stop because they were married to you? Because they were in a relationship with you? Because you were loving and kind and beautiful and all the things? Did that stop? No. Because when you also have that driver, which we talked about in Jay-Z, that developed as his core belief of the world, he has to control. If he feels out of control, bad things will happen to him, just like it did in his childhood. So why would he stop at control in the business world? Oh, wait, we've seen reports where he didn't stop in the business world at control. Okay, so now we're starting to hear rustlings that he's like that in his marriage, which to me, it's insane. It's insane how they've curated this image of this power couple, because in my opinion, my liar ass opinion, which I'm allowed to have, it couldn't be any further than a power couple. And then there's people out there that couple goals. Are you guys sick in the head? Okay, so that's fine though. Don't believe the control rumors. Let's just look at something that is out there publicly, and that is Jay-Z cheating on Beyonce. Do you know that he did that, right? It was all in Lemonade, which again is supposed to be an album all about empowerment. But I think what we have is a woman severely in a trauma bond who stayed. The album is actually about her codependence, but y'all aren't ready for that conversation, I guess. So let's talk about it. Beyonce's record came out, Lemonade, and it was this record about betrayal and infidelity. Beyonce essentially confirmed what fans had suspected, and that was that Jay-Z is a cheater. And she put it in her songs like Hold Up, Becky with the Good Hair. It was an album of a woman scorned, and actually one of the first times we saw Beyonce acknowledge and address the emotional abuse, because make no mistake, someone who is chronically cheating, there is betrayal that goes into that. There is chronic lying that goes into that. Chronic cheating inside of a marriage, especially one with a power dynamic, is emotional abuse. Does that make you uncomfortable when I say that? Because why don't we hold these celebrities accountable? You can say all that other stuff is alleged, all that other stuff is rumors. No, like this is something they've both confirmed. That is emotional abuse. And that is probably shit that went on for years. And we're just like, oh, power couple goals. And less than a year later, Jay-Z responds pretty much to Lemonade with his own confessional, own album of 444. And he really puts on there a lot of his childhood trauma. He's apologizing. What he is doing is he is taking control of the narrative. In my opinion, the album is performative. It's a performative I am sorry piece. And it's important that we reflect on this, because that is what our abusers will do. Sometimes we get an abuser and they don't apologize at all. And we're like, okay, I know that this is wrong because there's no way all of this pain and hurt can be my fault. But other times, which is even more sadistic because it really messes with your head, you're like, oh, wait, he is sorry. But you know how to tell if someone is actually sorry, their actions will change. But someone who apologizes without their actions changing, that is manipulation. And essentially in this album, Jay-Z says, I hurt you because I was hurt. And you know what? That shit's actually true. When people say stuff like that, that's true. It's not a lie. But you want to know why abusers say this? So that they can rationalize the pain and the abuse that they are doing to you. I think what Jay-Z did was actually really smart, because like, where else was he going to go after the Lemonade album was out? What he got to do instead was manufactured vulnerability. So he took this as a huge growing opportunity, probably made billions off of this story of this overcoming. People love a hero's journey. They love a whole arc. It's very cinematic. Every single movie that you love follows the hero's journey because people love it. It is the ultimate. It's how our psychology works. I guarantee you there's no way I know that and Jay-Z doesn't know that. He took it as a profitability, but it's also like, yeah, where else was he going to go? And like I said, he's the best at his craft. He's a good manipulator, allegedly, in my opinion. And you know what's crazy? In this very public apology, he apologizes for using her while still using her. Like, he's still making money off of her pain. And then where does this put Beyonce too? Because the psychology then is kind of like, oh, you're not going to accept his apology, this changed man, and it almost traps her. Because if she didn't, who knows? Especially then, who knows how the world would have actually responded. So she has this very stand by your man. And I do think the world is changing. I hope we're starting to see through that shit. And it's important to address the concept of trauma bonding here. People, by the way, sometimes get trauma bonding wrong. They think it's like, oh, you're bonding over shared traumas. He's traumatized, she's traumatized. That's not what trauma bonding is. Trauma bonding is literally becoming addicted to the intermittent positive reinforcement. So this person essentially treats you bad. Your body is flooded with horrible chemicals, cortisol, adrenaline, you just want to feel better. And then that person is also the one that comes back and fixes it. A trauma bond literally runs on the same mechanism as the whole city of Vegas, which is intermittent positive reinforcement. You are sitting at the slot machine, you get nothing, boom, you hit the jackpot and you have something, and your brain then is flooded with feel-good chemicals. So now you've attached this person as someone who is both the person who hurts you, but is also the one that saves you. So when he cheats on her, when he hurts her, and then he comes back with this whole album apologizing, or who knows what goes on behind the scenes, but well, I know what goes on behind the scenes with an abuser. Let me tell you, they will abuse you. And then they come back to you, they cry, they apologize, they say they're never going to do it again. And you just want to feel good because that shit is painful. Like, it is not people say, like, how can you be so dumb? You should be smart. You should know. This shit is chemical. It's really, really hard. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter the level of education that you have. The trauma bonds are designed to keep you stuck, designed to keep you addicted. And they start in that slow forming and that slow grooming. And then you don't even realize the choices that you're making. It's really not even you making those choices. It's a textbook cycle. Hurt, apologize, repeat. That's how you know it's manipulation, because it repeats again and again. And I know when you hear them say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. They know what they're doing. If they didn't know they were abusing you, why does it only happen behind closed doors? Riddle me that. Riddle me that. They didn't know they were abusing you. They're really so sorry. They didn't know what they were doing. Why do they do it behind closed doors? In summary, I think how Jay-Z handled the cheating scandal shows his manipulation operating at such a high level. He takes accountability in words, but only does so on his own terms. He managed to control the fallout, and in return what he got was a redemption arc and billions of more dollars. So no dark psychology of Jay-Z video would be complete without us talking about the elevator incident. So I'm gonna move over and we're gonna watch this video together because it gives us a lot of insights. If you guys aren't aware, what happened was this elevator video went viral, which is pretty much Beyonce's younger sister beating the shit out of Jay-Z in the elevator. And the rumors around it were that she was addressing him cheating. Let's watch this though. So you have the elevator, then Solange, that's Beyonce's youngest sister. She enters the elevator, Beyonce enters the elevator, and Jay-Z and Jay-Z's bodyguard also enter the elevator. Solange, this is when she starts beating him. She's angry at him for something. She's kicking him. She's violent. You can tell she's yelling at him about something. The video doesn't have any noise naturally. And then his bodyguard steps in and is holding her back. But right there, you also have Beyonce. And really watch her and how calm she is. So even in the midst of violence, she's so stoic. She's so calm. You want to know why? That's a learned behavior. So it looks like Solange is still yelling. You know, some people are saying like, Beyonce letting her go at him because she's not able to step in and probably say all these things that her sister is finally saying. But to me, I think it's just wild how she's able to stay so calm under all of this pressure. We're going to talk about that later. So security guard is like trying to get the elevator to move. I'm assuming she's still yelling because she's like face to him. Jay-Z is also very stoic in this. He obviously knows he's protected. What do you guys think she's saying? It's probably nothing good. And again, you have Beyonce there absolutely keeping her composure. This really reminds me of, I talked about this in Kim Kardashian's video, how Kim said that being calm was her superpower. So now we have Solange yelling at Jay-Z again, getting in his face. And by the way, after this, these guys downplay this elevator incident so much. Of course. I can imagine, like, this has to be one of the first times, like, Jay-Z is actually getting checked. Because what we're going to find out about him, very scary, is how much he has been able to avoid any type of accountability. So she goes after him again. Damn, part of me wanted to be like, I wish that bodyguard wasn't there, but honestly, would probably be scarier for the women. He obviously knows, like, he's protected. She goes after him again, though. Maybe she knows she's protected. And once again, Beyonce calm, stoic. She does put herself in the middle, but she's not like addressing her sister. She's not yelling at her sister. And then they leave the elevator, and that's what we had of it. Okay, so I want you to think about this, kind of going back to Kim Kardashian. And we talked about, she said that in her relationship with Kanye, who, in my opinion, is also a narcissistic and maybe was even a violent man. Who knows, allegedly. I'm just going off of the fact that Kanye has so many indicators, in my opinion, of being an abuser, but at least an emotional abuser. The same like entitlement, that same exploitive piece. But Kim said, calmness is my superpower. And we know from her deep dive, if you haven't watched those deep dives, you must. But we talked about that with having Chris, who allegedly beat the shit out of Kim, and that is learned. And I will say, from someone, I grew up in an abusive household, and it is really strange because it's like there's part of you that you become so addicted to chaos. So in some ways, and I've healed past this so much now, but I think about back in the day, it's like everything, all the little things were so dramatic, but if like a huge life event would have happened, I could be so calm under pressure. And I still carry that. Like when Kim said that, I felt that so much of like calmness is your superpower, when it actually is. It's dissociation too. And I really believe that calmness is something you can only, like you learn, and you learn that through repetition. You learn to dissociate, and you're both almost dissociated, but also that's your hypervigilance kicking in, which is really survival. That is literally, we as humans are wired for that type of survival, where all the other noise goes away and you are hyper focused on what you have to, and you're hyper focused on that for your survival. And that's how I watch Beyonce in the elevator. She is stoic. She is focused on what she has to. And you know why I think she's probably so calm around violence? Because in my opinion, in theory, she's exposed to that type of violence at home. And she too has had to learn that calmness has had to be her superpower. So while everyone else is being violent and lashing out, calmness is her superpower. I also do agree with that theory that she was probably happy that someone is finally saying something to Jay-Z, even though the shit gets just brushed under the table, and Jay-Z ends up putting out a statement like, oh, you know, we're family, and that's my sister. Also, when we're talking about survival responses, those are the three: fight, flight, or freeze. A lot of times people leave freeze out. Freeze is a trauma response. That's the calmness. That's sometimes though people can't even move their body. I don't think enough people really focused on that. It was sad for me to rewatch it. And Jay-Z and Beyonce both made songs about it. That's literally Beyonce's line that says, of course shit goes down when there's $1 billion on the elevator. And Jay-Z had in his song, you egged Solange on, knowing all along you had to say that you was wrong, which allegedly the reason why they got in a fight is because Jay-Z was hitting on some girl that he had cheated on, and like in front of Beyonce, like being absolutely not hiding his shit. And you know why someone gets that way, where they end up just being, it looks sloppy, but because they keep going unchecked. And I think this is the scariest part about Jay-Z, is how much he has been able to get away with. So this scandal, as of all of his, gets brushed under the rug. They say, oh, you know, it's just a little family squabble. What's a little family violence? Like, we're used to that here. Just a little family squabble, and it's over now. And Jay-Z has masterfully survived these scandals. He is worth $2.5 billion. No little scandal has touched him, including what came up most recently in 2024, which was an alleged accusation of Jay-Z being involved in Diddy, specifically in the raping of a 13-year-old girl. And so the woman who came forward, because this had happened allegedly back in the early 2000s, so she ends up dropping her case. And I'm going to read to you what Jay-Z said after this. And I want you to keep in mind as I read this. Number one, when people say, oh, why didn't you report? Why don't you report? Why don't you report? I want you to think of how awful the court systems are. Even if you don't believe this one's true, the court system is horrible to victims because they have to say their stories, and then a lot of times they still aren't believed. It is hard. How do you prove violence that happens behind closed doors that happened years ago? It doesn't mean that it didn't happen. So anyways, she dropped it, just like all legal charges against Jay-Z have always been dropped. And they say on his camp, he had nothing to do with it. Don't you believe that? Had nothing to do with it. And this is the statement that he put out after his victory, as they call it. He wrote, The frivolous, fictitious, and appalling allegations have been dismissed. This civil suit was without merit and never going anywhere. The fictional tale they created was laughable, if not for the seriousness of the claims. The trauma that my wife, my children, loved ones, and I have endured can never be dismissed. He continued, the courts must protect the innocent from being accused without a shred of evidence. May the truth prevail for all victims and those falsely accused equally. A couple things in this statement. Number one, like I said, who does his relationship with Beyonce benefit? It's that same Family Man script. The trauma of my wife, my children. No, not the trauma from your actions, like the ones when you cheat on her, or if allegedly you did this. Not the trauma of your actions. The trauma of being falsely accused of your actions. To me, this is it's such a threat. It's such a... Let's just pretend for a second that this is true, right? We're pretending it's all alleged. Let's pretend for a second this is true. Imagine reporting, feeling threatened, feeling scared, feeling like I will never win this because I am going against an absolute billionaire. And then having your abuser put this out and saying, essentially, hey, if you even try to go forward, everyone's going to think you're a liar. And I'm going to make sure everyone thinks you're a liar. The false, the fictitious claims are laughable. No one is going to believe you. And you know what? He's probably right. If this would have gone to court, who knows if she would have been believed. I worked in victim services for years when I was in college, and I used to have that very naive belief, well, why wouldn't you just go forward and report? Like, of course you should report your abuser. Until I started seeing how often they aren't believed, how they are re-traumatized, basically called a slut on the stand. They are brought up as far and disgusting as things like, what were you wearing? Why were you there? The most victim blaming. You would think that shit's so outdated. It's not. It's alive and well in the court systems. And then not be believed, have your name thrown out there, I guess just because she's a liar. She's a liar, and Jay-Z's going to make sure that everyone knows that she's a liar. And this is how this man has been left unchecked. He continues to be left unchecked. And you know what's crazy is we look at like some celebrities. I know celebrities that have been canceled for far less. A social media post, whatever. I'm not saying that those people are in the right. I'm so sorry. Like, this really didn't cause that much of an uproar. It seemed like this didn't even really upset people. There was no mass unfollowing. It got swept under the rug really quickly. This is the dangerous culmination of unchecked power. Jay-Z has reached a point of immunity. That is the level of power that he has. You want to say that that report is a lie? Fine. But we collectively allowed a self-admitted criminal, someone with a violent past, a proven cheater, an accused predator, to be seen as this family man and the other half of this power couple. And even to some, a hero. You guys, the media rarely checks him. Truly, so many articles positively written about him. People are still taking on interviews of him. People are still seeing him as this positive mentor. And it's an extraordinary study how charisma, money, and narrative control can let a person operate above normal rules. Jay-Z in many ways is the godfather of modern media manipulation. Jay-Z's saga is honestly fascinating, but it's not just celebrity gossip. It's a case study in dark psychology and power dynamics that can show up in our own lives. Jay-Z's journey from abandoned Brooklyn kid to hip-hop billionaire is often one people would say is inspiring. But as we've uncovered, beneath the surface of success is manipulation, obsession with power and control. Sure, rooted in childhood trauma, but has also led him to treat his business dealings and relationships as transactions. And it might just be my personal belief, you might not share the same one, but I do believe that there shouldn't be a level of money or fame that should excuse abusive behavior. And somehow, millions of people have excused his alleged abusive behavior. But it shows us how charisma can camouflage harm. And one day I'll probably do a part 2 specifically on Jay-Z, and we'll talk about what happens when that type of power goes unchecked. But for this part 2, we are going to be looking at Beyonce, the global feminist icon who, despite her strength, found herself intertwined in a controlling dynamic. Because if you thought Jay-Z's story and psychology was dark, get ready for Beyonce's, and make sure that you like this video and that you are subscribed so you can be ready when it drops. I will see you guys in the next one.